'cause I see the born of no return. Sister, hey now, can't you see we're rushing for the end? I see the point of no return. Now see the point of no return. It's just ahead.
Well, good evening. It's Tuesday. And for those of you who were not expecting this particular voice, yeah, it's a little bit of a change. Frankly, it's going to take a little getting used to for me as well. My name is Gary Hendershot. You're listening to Wide Awake News on the Rents Radio Network on Tuesday, July 15th, 2014. Normally I'm here on Monday, but there has been a change in the schedule. Hope you like this new fella, Ronnie McMullen, who's taken the Monday slot. From now on, I'll be on Tuesdays, and I understand Charlie McGrath has Wednesdays and Thursdays. We'll get used to it. It's like everything else, every once in a while, got to change something just to keep folks guessing. Now, if you're one of my regular listeners and you've been a little thrown off by this change in schedule, there is an easy solution. If you're a Twitter user, just mosey on over to Twitter and follow @SmartScarecrow on Twitter, and you will be notified at least 3 or 4 times during the day that I will be doing a live broadcast on the day that I'm going to be broadcasting. If you missed last week's presentation, which I did record but was not broadcast live on the Rents Radio Network, you can find recordings of all my material at youtube.com/smartscarecrow. And of course there is a website, smartscarecrow.com, where I publish all of my materials. So no excuse for missing out on Gary Hendershot barking at the moon if you're really interested. I got a lot of stuff to get through tonight. Let me move right into it. All right, it wasn't but a couple, 200 or 300 years ago that Europeans thought the earth was flat. Well, they finally figured out they were a little off base on that. Give them credit for waking up and smelling the coffee. And, of course, when Marco Polo came back from his adventures in the East, the Catholic Church tried to hush up the fact that there was this, incredible empire out to the East called China that nobody had ever heard of. And even worse, they had never heard of Jesus. Oh, my God. Tried to keep it quiet, but, it finally leaked out, and Europeans realized that, they were not the center of the earth. There are other civilizations out there, some of them more sophisticated than their own. In recent years, we've kind of slowly been getting the idea that human beings might not even be the center of the universe. Oh my God, when will it end? But you're always going to have that crowd out there who's going to say, well, if that was the case, it would have been in the Bible, or it would have been in the Koran. That's the word of God. And, if there were really pesky little gray anal probing space alien dudes, it would have been in the Bible. God would have told us about it. But, since about the 1950s, it seems like, we've been bombarded with movies about, the potential, the possibility, the musings, that there just might be life out there in the universe. I mean, after all, we have come to realize that we inhabit a fairly small little dirt ball that orbits a relatively insignificant sun that's out in the boondocks of a fairly common spiral galaxy, one of billions of such galaxies in the universe. So maybe, just maybe, in this incredible universe that we have come to realize we inhabit, there might be other folks out there sitting back wondering, gee, are we alone? Are we the best the universe has to offer? Now, of course, science fiction has looked at this from just about every perspective. And, you got them, kindly little cuddly space aliens that everybody just loves. And then you got them really creepy aliens that grab onto your face and hatch their eggs in your belly, So we got them, all the different scenarios have been put out there. A lot of people say, well, hey, if there really are alien civilizations out there in space, why haven't they visited us? Some say the reason they haven't come here is because if they did, we'd probably kill them and eat them. Others say, well, they've got some kind of a, Star Trek non-interference type thing going on, and if they do drop by, they just kind of look us over and say, well, those primitives, we'll come back in 100 years. Maybe they'll have grown up. Yet others say, not only are they here, but they're walking among us. And as a matter of fact, they have infiltrated the uppers, and that perhaps even the Queen of England is a shape-shifting alien lizard of some kind. Okay, well, so it runs the gamut. It runs the gamut. You got the folks out there that say, it can't be. It wasn't in the Bible, so they can't exist. You got the other ones saying, not only are they here, but, the Queen of England is one of them. Hey, I'm just an old country boy with straw for brains. I don't pretend to know the answer. It is interesting, though, that the NASA, those boys who are quite often referred to as never a straight answer, this just came out today. This is hot off the presses, reported by the Connecticut CBS Local. It's at cbslocal.com, connecticut.cbslocal.com. This report comes out of Cambridge, Massachusetts. NASA predicts that 100 million worlds in our own Milky Way galaxy may host alien life. Okay. Well, this is NASA talking. I should believe them, right? Right? On that one, you're going to have to make up your own damn mind. But the article goes on. Speaking at NASA's Washington headquarters on Monday, just yesterday, the space agency outlined a plan to search for alien life using current telescope technology and announced the launch of the Transiting Exoplanet Surveying Satellite. Well, that's a mouthful. In 2017. What's driving this is the fact that astronomers have confirmed the existence of planetary bodies orbiting relatively nearby stars that are fairly similar in composition to the Earth and orbit their host sun in what's referred to as the Goldilocks zone, that area where water can exist on the surface of the planetary body in liquid form. Many scientists these days just kind of assume that if there is water in a liquid form, there's a very high probability of life. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean? I mean, does this mean that, we're going to become part of the Galactic Federation and have starships zipping back and forth? Well, probably not in my lifetime, probably not in my children's lifetime, probably not in my children's lifetime. But maybe. Does this mean that there are other civilizations out there who have social structures that we would recognize as civilizations? Nobody really knows. Does that mean that when we get there, we'll find out that, they worship the same gods that we do and have the same sorts of mythologies driving their societies that we have? Not really sure on that one either. Or does that mean that all we might really find there is microbial life, perhaps bacteria and viruses, and that nothing that has achieved self-awareness might exist there? We just don't know. But, with NASA making the pronouncement that they should be able to say 100% for certain that there is extraterrestrial life within the next 2 decades. They're saying that they should have the proof in hand within the next 2 decades. With NASA coming out and saying that they're sure there's life out there and that they're going to have the proof within 10 to 20 years, I would say that your indoctrination is probably about complete. You are now ready to accept the fact that, no, we're not alone. How's it all going to work out? I kind of hope I'm around to see, because I find that to be a very positive scenario. I find that to be good news. What do you think? You're going to have to make up your own damn mind. Big announcement came out today. Big announcement. Big announcement. Did you hear it? Did you hear it? Came out of the White House. Big announcement. Yeah. The White House announced on July 14th, just yesterday, we've substantially improved the tranquility of the global community. Yeah, it's official. It's official. We got to get back into my serious newscaster persona here, but I tell you, it's hard after that. White House Press Secretary Josh Earnest said Monday the Obama administration's foreign policy in a number of areas have enhanced the world's tranquility. A word that raised eyebrows as reporters pointed to situations in Gaza, Syria, Iraq, Iran, Ukraine, and the South China Sea. More than one reporter during Monday's press briefing referred to a front-page Wall Street Journal article highlighting some of those crises and citing security strategists as saying the breadth of global instability now unfolding hasn't been seen since the late 1970s. What do you think? You think they're trying to drive public opinion? You think they're trying to kind of make you forget about the Veterans Administration debacle? You think maybe they're trying to make you forget about the fact that, nothing has yet been done about the IRS being used as a political weapon by this administration against those they consider to be political rivals? Nothing has yet been done about Benghazi. Do you remember that one? Remember Benghazi? Hillary Clinton? You remember that one? We forget so soon. Remember when we were about ready to blow up the guy over my shoulder here, Assad? We were about ready to go in and bomb Assad in Syria. We were this close, and then John Kerry made the statement, well, yeah, if he agreed to give up all of his chemical weapons as weapons of mass destruction, we probably wouldn't have a good... And Vladimir Putin's jumped on the bandwagon. Oh, yeah, we'll give up the chemical weapons, no problem. And all of a sudden, the impetus for blowing up Syria dissolved. Remember that? Yeah, John Kerry had egg on his face. And, remember that little fracas that still has not been resolved in this far-off country called Ukraine? It's kind of straddles the border between the European Union and Russia. Has always been a nation that was within Russia's sphere of influence, and through skullduggery and a large amount of U.S. money, your tax money, has now been wrestled away from Russia, although at this point, we're kind of standing there eyeball to eyeball with the Russians, with both sides trying to coax the other into firing the first missile. Remember that one? You remember that? That one's still going on today. That one's still nasty today. There are people dying in Ukraine to this day. Remember that outfit, ISIL or ISIS or whatever they want to call themselves this week? I think they're a country now, if I remember correctly. They've claimed part of Syria. They've claimed part of Iraq, and of course, they're hell-bent on expanding throughout the Middle East and creating a Muslim caliphate to rival, the Ottoman Empire. That's their stated goal. These are boys who are apparently financed by our CIA, again, with your tax money funneled through the Saudis. These were the guys who we had set up to go in and kick Assad's butt, but, they found kicking Assad's butt was really tougher than they really wanted to deal with, so instead they went and kicked our buddies' butt in Iraq. All these things have made us more tranquil. We now live in a more tranquil world than before Obama came into office. Really? They're trying to convince us of that. It almost makes me reminisce over simpler, kinder times. What do you think? Is the world a more tranquil place since Obama became president? Do you go to sleep feeling more secure today than you did even back during Clinton's administration? you're going to have to look at the facts and make up your own damn mind. Me? I'm just an old country boy with straw for brains. I don't pretend to know all the answers. But, you know, I do know when smoke is being blown up my skirt. The White House is attempting this week to fend off a subpoena from Congress intended to compel top political advisors for United States President Barack Obama from testifying on Capitol Hill. Yeah, they've been subpoenaed. And the White House is saying, we don't think so. Remember that Lerner woman? Yeah. She's not in jail yet, although I think Congress has the right, has the authority to lock that woman up if she's really in contempt of Congress. That's life in America in the 21st century. I'm hearing the music. I'm going to have to skedaddle out of here for a little bit while the studio sells some goods. I'll be back right after these important commercial messages. All right, let me see if I can cut into this music. I got a lot of stuff to get done here in a very short period of time. I'm going to try to zip through a few of these articles real fast. This one comes out of the Washington Times. Now, again, Washington Times, that's the paper that Reverend Moon out of Korea owns. You know, they're kind of, you know, they're kind of Republican-leaning, right-wing type outfit. But, you know, every once in a while you find something interesting. And this gets back to one that I touched on a little bit earlier. You know, we've had this scandal about the Veterans Administration. I mean, basically, these guys have been caught being derelict in their duties and basically treating wounded veterans not just badly, but in an inhumane way. I mean, these people, for whatever reasons, now look, it's not for me to judge, okay? You know, whether you like the war that these fellows fought in or not, shouldn't even be argued on the table, okay? That is irrelevant. For the most part, these people joined the military thinking they were doing the honorable thing, thinking they were doing what was best for you, their families, and their nation. Now, yeah, you know, you can say, okay, you know, they were fools. They bought in. You can say what you want, but do not diminish the reality of the fact that, for the most part, these people went into the military thinking they were doing the right thing and assuming that the government that they put their ass on the line for would take care of them if the worst happened. So now you got fellows coming back that have been blown to bloody bits. You know, they're missing chunks of their bodies, or they've come back so screwed up from their experiences in the military that, you know, they are mentally unsound. They need some help. They're entitled to that help. And the Veterans Administration, the outfit that was supposed to be put in charge of seeing to it they got the help they needed, has treated them with total disrespect and disregard. Certainly not the way an honorable nation would treat its honored warriors. Testimony before Congress reveals whistleblowers continually ignored. The VA's rush to cut a huge backlog of claims. This is what they were just making these guys wait. Hopefully, they'll just die before we have to pay to give them any kind of service. A huge backlog of claims from disabled veterans has forced it to cut corners elsewhere. and yet the department is still botching about 1 out of every 10 claims decisions. Top officials and whistleblowers testified to Congress on Monday, signaling that the problem goes far beyond the hospital wait times that have plagued it. Basically, the Veterans Administration is being mismanaged out the wazoo. Why are none of the big shot, entrenched bureaucracy being fired? I mean, they gave us a pound of flesh. They blew out the guy who was the nominal political head of the Veterans Administration. They plugged in a new political crony. But as far as the bureaucracy that runs the Veterans Administration on a day-to-day basis, it's the same gang of thieves that have been there all along. Now it comes out that in their haste to try to get some good press and try to speed up the process, they have apparently given out a lot of benefits that some of these fellows that weren't really entitled to. Now, I can imagine what's going to happen next. They're going to figure out where they made their mistake, and these veterans are going to wind up getting a bill. Oh, we gave you a little bit more than you were entitled to. You now owe us with interest. How much you want to bet that's going to be the next news report? And no, that hasn't happened yet. But, the way I read this article, that is the likely outcome. Getting on to the other hot scandal. The IRS was being used as a weapon against political opponents. Well, here's some get even for you. The GOP-controlled House has slashed the budget for the Internal Revenue Service's Tax Enforcement Division by $1.2 billion, a 25% cut. Let me read that again, okay? This comes out of Associated Press. This is an Associated Press article. Washington. Today. This just came out today. The GOP-controlled House has slashed the budget for the Internal Revenue Service's Tax Enforcement Division by $1.2 billion. That's a 25% cut. Moral of that story, if there was ever a good time to cheat on your taxes, no, I wouldn't do such a thing. Who, me? No, I overpay the bastards. I don't want to take any chances. But for those of you who are into such things, hey, sometimes, you got to laugh at these guys, okay? You have to laugh at them. All right? I'm serious. Laugh at them. They are inept. They are inane. They think they're pulling it over on you. Now, this audience, even though it may be made up of old country boys with straw for brains, this audience is smart enough to know when smoke's blowing up your skirt, okay? And, there's been a lot of smoke. Oh, boy. Oh, this thing in Gaza. What can I say? Another hot spot in the world. Now, what's kind of scary about, when you look at what's going on in Ukraine, and you look at what's going on in Gaza, and you got the Israelis out there who are absolutely insane, okay? The Israelis are, yet another small part of this global mafia that's trying to whip everybody up into a frenzy and get us going into a World War III scenario. Okay, so you got the Israelis blaming the Hamas in Gaza for shooting some bottle rockets over into to Israel. I understand, if you believe the reports, that one Israeli was indeed killed by one of these bottle rockets that Hamas was shooting over into Israel. I understand that the retribution that Israel has foisted upon the civilian population of Gaza has accounted for somewhere around, depending on whose reports, 170, 180 dead in Gaza, most of them women and children. Because any of the guys who were really involved in the resistance against Israel, certainly weren't hanging out in civilian areas. You know, they were positioned out at the front. Now, interesting thing to note, Israel tried to blame Syria for shooting a missile into, I mean, they're just trying like hell to whip this up into war fever. And you got that, Bibi Netanyahu fella, Netanyahu, whatever the heck his name is. You got him out there saying, oh, they wouldn't accept the peace deal that was brokered by the Egyptians. Now, here again, the peace deal brokered by the Egyptians required that everything go back to the way it was, with Israel still holding a boot on Gaza's neck, basically putting them under a quarantine. But the folks in Gaza have to give up all their what are referred to as offensive capabilities. So Gaza has to give up all their bottle rockets. Israel still gets to hold a boot on their neck. That's a fair deal. You'd take that one, wouldn't you? Well, Hamas said, let's talk a better deal. I'm hearing the music again. It's time for me to step out for just a moment while the studio sells some goods. You betcha. I'll be back right after these important commercial announcements. I got too much to cover tonight. I'm going to have to butt into the music. It's just, you know, I know I got about 44 minutes and 32 seconds to get this stuff out there, you know, and I think I've got about 12 minutes left, and I'm looking at a big pile of paper I got to try and get through. Let's see. Turkey's prime minister accuses Israel of state terrorism over Gaza. Yeah, you betcha. If you look at what's happening with this Israeli incursion into Gaza, what you have to remember is that the Israelis were totally unable to move effectively against Gaza on the ground. They attempted an invasion by sea and were repelled. They attempted an armored assault and were repelled. About the only thing they've been able to do, and this is mainly because Gaza is pretty much defenseless when it comes to anti-aircraft or anything like that, is that they have been able to pummel civilian areas with missiles and fighter jet bombers that have pretty much destroyed much of the infrastructure, the electricity generation, the water distribution. They have basically destroyed what little infrastructure was left in Gaza. They keep pointing a finger at Syria. You know, everybody's been trying to, you know, find a reason to kick Syria's ass for a long time, and the Israelis are really trying to whip this up, trying to stir the pot, trying to get things going so that you, Mr. American, will get all upset and want to support that poor little country, Israel, poor Israel, Holocaust, Nazis, you know, and get you all excited, get you interested in sending your blood and your treasure to support them in a larger conflagration than what already exists. Now, a lot of the players in the Middle East, including a lot of Arab nations like Saudi Arabia, and possibly even this ISIL outfit, a lot of them are kind of egging Israel on, because, you know, they would like to have things a little less tranquil in the Middle East, all in the name of who gets the oil. The problem is there are interests that might see that as a direct threat to them. Folks like, I don't know, China? Oh, maybe Russia? And we're already eyeball to eyeball with Russia in Ukraine. I tell you, anybody makes a misstep in this Ukraine situation, that could be it. That could be the match that lights the fuse. Hopefully, cooler heads will prevail. Hopefully, you will express your disgust over all this posturing and basically tell them, hell no, I won't go. Ukraine, you sort out your own problems. Israel, you want to kick your neighbor's ass? Well, you know what? You just have at it. Have fun with that. I'm going to sit back and watch. Anybody got some popcorn? Because I tell you, if not for the fact that the biggest bully on the block, the U.S. of A., stands behind Israel like some dumb country boy with straw for brains. Well, he's my buddy. I don't care what the heck he does. I don't care if he's right or wrong. I'm going to be right there behind him. If not for that, Israel will be in a bad way. So again, we're just going to have to keep an eye on, there's probably not a whole lot that you or I can really do about these things other than laugh at them. Laugh at them. And tell them like it is. Tell them, look, you're on your own, boys. Have fun with that. I'm not getting involved. That's your business. You started it. Let's see if you can finish it. Moving on to other items in the news. In March 2010, this is out of the Weekly Standard, in March 2010, Obamacare was about to be voted upon by the House of Representatives, and the Democrats were in the process of deciding whether to ignore public opinion at their peril. You have to remember back in 2010 when folks were getting ready to pass this Obamacare thing, there was a march on Washington. I was part of it. There was at least 500,000 people on the street. Some say the number was 2 million. I don't know. I was a hippie back during the 1960s, and I remember some pretty darn big protest marches where they said there were, about 100,000 people or so. Well, there was more people marching against Obamacare back in 2010 than I saw at any Vietnam peace rally during all my years of protesting the war in Vietnam. But they ignored public opinion, passed Obamacare, and the Democrats promptly lost 63 House seats that November. 2 years later, the Supreme Court declared Obamacare's coercive Medicaid expansion into to be unconstitutional as written, and the CBO adjusted its projections. In February of this year, the CBO projected that Obamacare would reduce the number of uninsured by 13 million as of 2014. In April, the CBO had seen enough of the Obama administration's skillful rollout to reduce the estimate to 12 million. Now the Urban Institute finds that Obamacare has actually reduced the number of uninsured. Okay, are you ready for this? Drum roll, please. Okay, the big appeal to Obamacare is it was going to get all those uninsured people insured. Number of uninsured adults by 8 million. Not the 14 million that was originally projected. Not the 13 million that was the reduced expectation. Not the 12 million that they thought maybe might have. But 8 million since the rollout began last fall. The kicker is, of the 8 million uninsured who are now insured because of Obamacare, yeah, you betcha, over 85% are insured on some sort of a special subsidy paid for by you, whether you decided to buy Obamacare or not. Doesn't that just give you a warm fuzzy? You betcha. I just love Obamacare. Thank you, Obama, for giving me that free health care. I just absolutely love Obamacare. You betcha. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm going to have time for that one. I want to get into this one here. Yeah. Do you feel like maybe you've lost a little ground over the last decade or so? You feel like, you're at least keeping up. I mean, the government says ain't no inflation. They say, the cost of living's gone up this much, but wages have gone up this much too, so it really all evens out, There's no perceptible inflation. Well, here's some facts. This is comparing 2000 to 2014. Okay? 2000 to 2014. So we're looking back in history. We've hopped into the Wayback Machine, and we're checking on prices between 2000 and 2014. A barrel of oil, okay? Basic commodity. A barrel of oil in 2000 sold for $24.11. In March of 2014, it was up to $100. That's a 314% increase. Now, has your pay gone up 314% since the year 2000? I ask you, okay? I mean, if it has, good for you. Mine hasn't. How about a gallon of gasoline? In January of 2000, you could buy a gallon of gasoline most anywhere in the United States for, $1.25, $1.30. $1.25, $1.30. That was typical. In March of 2014, national average was $3.51. That's an increase of only 176%. So, at least it's not the 314% increase that a barrel of oil has seen. But, yeah, it's 176%. Now, I ask you, maybe you've gotten a couple of promotions over the last 14 years. Maybe, you finally made it to that corner office. Got the secretary. Maybe you got a key to the executive suite. I don't know. Even still, even with all your promotions and everything, are you making 176% of what you were making back in 2000? I ask you. How about a movie ticket? Just some basic harmless entertainment. I want to see a movie. I want, an hour and a half, 2 hours of absolute escapism. I want to forget my troubles for a couple hours. I want a thing of popcorn and I want to go see a good film. If you can find a good film, back in 2000, that movie ticket was going to cost you about $5. Maybe $5.25 in some urban places. But, $5 on the average. Today, average, about $10.25. We're not even going to talk about what's happened to the price of popcorn. So that's double. That's double. Are you making double today what you were making 14 years ago? Now, according to the government, average wages in the United States have gone up 39%, while average costs in the United States have gone up only 31%. So see, you should be smiling, okay? Yeah, things are a little bit more expensive today than it was in 2000, but you're making more money, right? Right? You feel that smoke again? I do. That's it for me tonight. I've had my share of barking at the moon. You betcha I'll be back next Tuesday to do a little bit more barking at the moon. And until then, try to laugh at them. It drives them crazy. Good night, all. Well, I tell you, I didn't get through hardly a third of all the stuff I had tonight. After all that ranting and raving, I need a coffee and a smoke. Here's an interesting one. The BRICS nations have announced their own central bank. Everybody out there know what the BRICS nations are? You know, it's like Brazil, Russia, India, China. And I think they probably got Argentina and a few others coming on board at this point too. So might have to think of a new acronym for them because it's an expanding alliance. They're basically hell bent on putting together a competitor for the International Monetary Fund and the world globalization effort that's being foisted upon us by the Rothschild banking interests. This article this is from Zero Hedge. Putin explains that this is part of a system of measures that would help prevent the harassment of countries that do not agree with some foreign policy decisions made by the United States and their allies. Basically, they've all agreed to ante up $100 billion to start a fund for their own miniature international monetary fund. Now, are the Rothschild bankers shaking in their boots over, this competitor with $100 billion at their disposal? Probably not. I mean, the Rothschild family alone is valued in excess of $1 trillion. They are the world's first trillionaires. And when you consider all the various Rothschild interests worldwide, it's probably somewhere in the quadrillions. Now, I got news for you. An old country boy with straw for brains cannot even comprehend how many zeros that is. Okay? But let's put it this way. They got all the money that you will make, you meaning the entire world. They have all the money that the entire world will produce for about the next 5 generations. Yeah, isn't that just precious? And they did it through subterfuge. Their wealth is an illusion. The only reason they are wealthy is because you still think that a piece of paper with a dead president's picture on it actually has value. As soon as that illusion wears off, as soon as you no longer accept their money for your labors, they're done. Okay? That is the secret to that one. Let's see here. An announcement coming out of Polygon.com. It appears that Microsoft could be laying off thousands of people this week, sometime this week. Now, Microsoft was on hard times back in 2009, and at that point they cut 5,800 employees. Rumors have it that this time around the cuts will be significantly greater than that. There might be big cuts to the Xbox division and the UK European headquarters. Hard to say exactly how many people are about to get axed from Microsoft. Now, it's hard to say if the troubles that Microsoft is experiencing right now might have anything at all to do with the fact that they apparently cooperated with the NSA's spying bit and put backdoors into their operating systems. And at this point, you got countries like Germany and Russia thinking seriously about going, low tech, no tech. I mean, these guys they're serious. I mean, they're going back to typewriters. They say, screw it. Screw it. We don't need you. We're going to find a way to work around it. All of a sudden, alternative operating systems such as Linux, where the source code can be closely reviewed and evaluated, and then a custom kernel compiled. Here again, if you buy a commercial version of Linux, there is a very high probability that there are all sorts of backdoors in it that you won't find if you get hold of the source code and compile your own kernel. But, you know, if you grab one of the readily available, just download me for free today versions of Linux, and you really think you are any more secure than just buying a copy of Windows or getting an Apple OS or whatever, guess again. If you wish to have a secure operating system on your computer, you had best be able to read C code like a second language, and you had best evaluate very carefully the source code for the operating system you intend to load on your computer, compile it yourself, at which time you may indeed have an OS on your computer that is not subject to the frivolous intrusions by the cloak and dagger boys. Yeah, I'll tell you. What does a pedophile look like? What does a pedophile look like, you know? You tell me. This guy here look like a pedophile? Does he look like a pedophile? Well, I can tell you right now, this guy looks a little weird. This guy, by the way, he's dead now. His name is Seville. He was a entertainer on the BBC. Does he look like a pedophile? It does kind of look like that Uncle Ernie character from Tommy and the Who, but, you know, I don't know. What does a pedophile look like? I mean, does this guy here look like a pedophile? Now, you know, if there's one of this group that really does sort of look like my impression of a pedophile, it might be this guy here. I got to tell you, his shirt says, "I skipped lunch. Save the children." Yeah, if any of them look like a pedophile, it's probably this guy here. But, you know, the reason I mention this is because, you know, there is a big scandal going on in the UK right now where yeah, you betcha. Yeah, I'm looking at the chat room here. Every one of them, these guys say every one of them looks like a pedophile. You guys know these pedophiles personally, right? You guys part of the club? But yeah, apparently the British Parliament is rife with pedophiles. You know, and they've been outing them right now. Now, most of them, you know, it didn't come out until after they were already dead. That, you know, so and so like little boys, and so like little girls, and but, you know, it blows my mind how many, how fast, and how ugly this thing with MPs in the British Parliament, the upper, you know, the stiff upper lip types, you know, are buggering little boys and little girls and doing creepy stuff, you know. Okay, now, for my American audience, look, but before we come down too hard and fast on our cousins in England, leave us not forget the late 80s and early 90s when here in the United States we had the Franklin child prostitution ring allegations, okay? Now, as soon as it came out that the CIA, DynCorp, and possibly the first Bush administration were somehow intertwined with it. Somehow, you know, when that came out, it was all of a sudden quieted down. You know, there was a lot of really angry articles written about this Franklin little boy prostitution nonsense back in the late 80s, early 90s. There was a lot of articles. A few reporters seem to have mysteriously disappeared and or committed suicide. People who were following up on this particular thing, they just off, like kind of like the guy with the nail gun in the back of the head. You know, they just committed suicide, hung themselves. You know, died in airplanes where the propellers fell off and things of that nature. You know, and all of a sudden it just got real quiet. and Barney Franks. Barney Franks, who had, something going on in the basement of his townhouse. He's still in Congress. So, before we point a finger at the Brits and say, oh, well, that's just the way those Brits are, they like little boys, little girls, Before we go too far in that direction, those who live in glass houses, I've always said, before you start complaining about the trash in your neighbor's yard, be a good idea to clean up your own yard first. Yeah, the Brits right now are getting the dirt on an awful lot of their politicos, and if you think it's not happening here, right here in River City, you had best think again. It seems that one of the sure ways to get elected to a position of prominence is for those who control the elections to have something on you. And what better motivation to make sure that you're going to toe the line than we got pictures of you, doing something naughty with a, 12-year-old girl or a 9-year-old boy or a 3-year-old goat or whatever. We got the pictures. You will vote the way we want. And you betcha Israel does get another billion in the cookie jar. So, yeah, what's going on in England is sick, twisted, and yeah, some of these guys, the ones that are still alive, ought to be hung. The ones that are dead ought to be dug up, hung, buried, dug up, and hung again. Yeah, really, what does a pedophile look like? Uncle Ernie, lead you to your very own machine. Yeah, Never mind. And the Fed. And the Fed. The Federal Reserve. Those are battle cries for Americans, right? There should be millions of Americans on the street, angry as hell, about how badly they have been raped by this entity called the Federal Reserve, which is no more federal than Federal Express, and uses your future wages, your children's future's wages, and their children's future wages as their reserves. You would think that if there were going to be protests about the Federal Reserve, they'd be happening in Washington, they'd be happening in Dallas, they'd be happening in Chicago, they'd be happening all over the United States. Where, you ask, are the most active and most involved protests against the Federal Reserve? Right now in Germany, where about 20,000 people regularly get together every Monday and just raise hell talking about ending the Federal Reserve. No, these people are not geographically challenged. They have come to realize that this beast known as the Federal Reserve, in many ways, impacts them and the rest of Europe as much or more than it impacts us in the United States. Now, there's a fellow named Lars who's a skydiver of all things. Now, does this guy look like a Nazi to you? He's being called a Nazi and an anti-Semite. I mean, they're using everything in the book. They're throwing everything in the book against this guy. The guy's a skydiver, but he's no dummy. He may look like he's a little bit of a hippie, freaky type, but, you know, hey, you know, I had longer hair than that back in the 70s. I'm used to it. He's apparently the organizer of this thing. And the protests are regular, routine. They're getting a lot of press. And you betcha, the German version of a SWAT team is keeping a close eye on them. They are being harassed. Apparently, this fellow Lars, who's the organizer of this thing, apparently one of his cars just mysteriously burst into flames one night. Then a little while later, a car that he was seen driving around in, who belonged to a friend of his, it burst into flames too. So, you know, yeah, I think they're probably trying to send this fella a message. But the bottom line is, right now, some folks that I truly admire are protesting the U.S. Federal Reserve, and of all places, no, not Baltimore, no, not Boston, no, not New York, no, not Chattanooga, but yeah, of all places, Germany. That, to me, is a hopeful little piece of news. Oh, boy, let's see here. I really wanted to get through this piece on immigration tonight during the Rents broadcast, but I tell you, man, sometimes an hour just ain't quite enough. Yeah, okay, so, you know, at this point, we were told, you know, maybe 10,000. Then we were told that they had prepped for as many as 60,000 5 months before it started happening. So, you know, they were all geared up for 60,000. Now we're told there might be 90,000. Yeah, life jackets of all sizes and the occasional punctured raft are strewn along the banks of the Rio Grande just south of Mission, Texas. And now bodies have started floating up. Yeah. This invasion from the south is, you know, it's bad for everybody on all sides. The only people who are enthusiastic about this mess are the coyotes, the fellows who arrange the transit. Okay, some of these guys, I understand, are making like $50,000 a week. $50,000 a week, bringing these illegals in from Honduras and Central America. Yeah, they're happy. Boy, yeah, they found a pot of gold. They're tickled to death. It appears that, you know, some of the gangs, particularly the MS-13 and and this obnoxious brown-skinned KKK La Raza, you know, they're very enthusiastic about this. They think it's great that, you know, all these hapless individuals are climbing over each other's bodies to get into the United States right now. People, American people, black people, white people, brown people, red people, all people who are here legally and have a right to be here are shocked and appalled. I mean, look, Americans are by nature very generous people, okay? And, you know, it's easy to pull on our heartstrings, you know. I mean, it doesn't take much, you know, and we don't want to see these people suffer. We don't want to see these young kids absolutely, you know, in despair. You know, we want to be nice guys. You know, we want to make the world a better place. But how much of the world's misfortunes can we handle? Now, communities all over the United States are blocking these immigrants from coming in. I mean, we just had an incident just north of me up in Maryland where they stood, no way, okay? You had that incident out in Arizona where people stood in the way, and they said, no, you're not bringing them here, okay? We don't care where you take them, but you're not taking them here. Okay, all over the country, people are getting angry about this. It's the first time in a long time that a topic has actually galvanized the American people to the point where they will get out and face off against authority. You know, I often think that, boy, they should really be out there facing off about the Federal Reserve. They should really be out there facing off about this headlong rush to war. I mean, it just, you look around and you can hear the war drums beating. You just know that these idiots are trying like hell to stir up World War III. But the one issue in the news that has galvanized Americans, made allies of white, black, brown, red alike, they're all coming together saying, hell no. Send them home. Send them back where they belong. Give them a shower. Give them whatever immediate medical attention they need. Feed them. Put some clothes on them. Then stick them on a bus and take them home. Okay? They do not belong here. We got no way to take care of them. And it's not making the Fed happy, because the Fed, just like MS-13, sees these new immigrants, I would call them invaders, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. The Fed sees these new immigrants with possibilities. How can we mold these minds? How can we make them dependent American citizens? How can we make them submissive and servile? Well, if they depend on Big Daddy USA for 3 hots and a cot, and they're indebted to us for giving them a get-out-of-jail-free card, and you can now be an American, you think maybe these fellers, if we gave them a nice, clean, pressed uniform and an M16, you think maybe we could convince them to go kill the other brown people that we need to have killed? Those darn, white people and black people, they're getting awful uppity. We'd like to have us a war over in the Middle East, and they're saying no. But these new guys coming in, they owe us big time. And if we put them in a nice uniform and give them an M16 and tell them go kill those brown people over there, they'd probably do it for us. Oh, and if those white and black people here in the U.S. get a little bit too uppity and we need somebody to take care of them, yeah. Remember little ditty that happened in Murrieta, M-U-R-R-I-E-T-A. I hope I'm saying it right. Murrieta, California. This is just, I think, a little south of San Diego. The immigration was going to bring a whole bunch of these kids, a couple busloads, to some kind of a center that they had set aside in this Murrieta town. The locals got wind of it, and they were out there and they stopped them. You remember that? It was reported in alternative media. It was around. And I think Pete Santilli from the Rents Network was on the scene there giving some on-scene reports. And actually his coverage on that was pretty darn good. Bottom line is, after a couple of attempts to get these busloads of immigrants, invaders, into this town of Murrieta, the Fed just finally gave up and said, okay, we give up. And everybody thought it was a nice, peaceful resolution, right? Well, now it's come out that there was a lot of back traffic on that one that we are just now starting to get wind of. It appears that the Fed was getting ready to SWAT team the protesters. Yeah, it's come out. Highly credible insider in a recorded interview has shed some light on what happened, and according to him, things could have gone a wholly different direction. According to the whistleblower, who has thus far remained anonymous for fear of reprisal, the Department of Homeland Security, on orders from the White House, was preparing to disperse the protesters with physical force, if necessary. Federal riot police were being mobilized, complete with riot gear, body armor, and armored personnel carriers. Yeah, you betcha. They was going to make you out to be one of them there domestic terrorists. Yeah, yeah. What stopped them? Because we saw the same thing at the Bundy Ranch, okay? I mean, they were there to have their way with the Bundys. What stopped them? Did a bunch of cowboys with lever-action rifles and six-shooters on horses ride up and protect those protesters from those evil feds? No, no. Insiders within the Border Patrol basically faced off against the feds and said, look, we will not follow unconstitutional orders. We will do as the Constitution says. And if necessary, we will stand with the protesters. Needless to say, hard to tell whether any of these fellows is going to make it to enjoy their pension. I bring this piece up primarily because, we need to understand that not every government officer who wears a uniform is the enemy. There are some say a majority. There are some who say the majority. When push comes to shove, will actually do the right thing. Now, these Border Patrol officers are getting a little fed up with being babysitters and escort services. They were hired to protect the borders of the United States. The federal government has abused them and forced them to do things that are starting to make their teeth itch. Where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? It appears that enough Border Patrol agents stood up to Homeland Security that they backed down. Can we bet it's going to happen again? No. Next time around, you may be out there peacefully protesting some abuse by the federal government, and you could wind up facing off with a bunch of fellas in Darth Vader outfits driving tanks. This time around, the protesters got lucky. They got some much-needed support from uniformed services on the inside. And that's all the articles that I had intended to present. See, I needed about another half hour tonight, and I could have got all that stuff covered. But that concludes my after-show prepared presentation. At this point, I throw it open to the live studio audience. I've got a chat room here that I'm watching. Is there anything you guys can think of in the news, any really hot item that was in the news that I failed to cover tonight? I mean, surely I missed a good one. Surely I missed a really, really good one. What hot items were in the news in the last week that Gary the Slacker just totally overlooked? I'm waiting. SpaceX Draco test. Yeah, actually that would, well, I'm not, I did read the article, but I didn't study up on any of the background on that one. That would have been a good item. That would have been a good item. I should have covered that because, I always like to have a couple of good news pieces. Tonight my good news pieces was this quest for alien life out there. And I hope I hope that was a bit uplifting. And then I did a doggy downer and just brought you down into the dirt with the rest of the stuff. Yeah, it's, the SpaceX boys have got, you know, you're going to have to search the article. Okay, search down the article and read it. I read the article. Fulford's, just to be honest with you, I take what Fulford says with kind of a half a grain of salt. Don't get me wrong, I listen to what he has to say. I mean, there's a lot of people. I listen to Webster Tarpley. Okay, 99% of the time I find myself saying, "You damn socialist idiot," but I still listen to him because the guy is brilliant. And his perspective on history is diametrically opposed to mine. So I like to hear differing opinions. Fulford is one of those differing opinions. And what can I say? It's some of his stuff is interesting. I'm still waiting for those 5,000 ninjas to drop out of the ceiling and take them on. I can only wish, but we'll just have to see. Let's see. I got somebody here saying that I hit all the really good spots. Well, one of the things I did not talk about, mainly because everybody is talking about it already. But I'll tell you, if you right now at this point in time are sitting on a little stash of cash, okay? I mean, there's some of you out there. I realize most of us are poor as church mice. I realize that, but I'll tell you. If you've got, $5, $6, maybe $10,000 sitting in a savings account somewhere, or maybe in a CD, and you are not seriously contemplating buying gold right now, shame on you. Shame on you. I don't know if you saw, but somebody sold a whole bunch of futures contracts on gold. I think $1.5 billion worth or something like some ridiculous amount, more than there is gold in Fort Knox. Okay, and it's just ridiculous. Drove the price of gold down through the floor. Right now, gold is selling for under $1,300 an ounce. Okay, gold is currently selling for under $1,300 an ounce. I have to believe that this is probably your last short window in time when you'll be able to buy gold that cheap. It's just right now, gold in theory. I mean, if inflation had been real and they hadn't been, artificially keeping the value of gold down, right now, if gold had inflated at the same rate as other commodities, like, say, oil, or pork bellies, or coffee, gold would be costing you somewhere between, $3,200 and $4,500. It'd be somewhere in that range, okay? Right now, at less than $1,300 an ounce, gold has got to be one of the most bargain commodities. Now, I'm not one of these gold bugs who says, "Oh, you're going to make your fortune buying gold." That's bullshit, okay? That is really, really, really bullshit. Yeah, and I'm going to put my bullshitometer up here to emphasize that is truly bullshit. Nobody makes money buying gold. What you do with gold is you preserve wealth. If you've got $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 sitting in a savings account or a CD, getting 0.5% interest or 1.5% interest or whatever, little bitty teeny, chicken interest you're getting, and you're not thinking about pulling at least half of it out and buying gold with it, shame on you. Shame on you. Now is an option, if you can find any. I looked at my favorite, I happen to be a big fan. If I'm looking for fractionals, I like the British sovereigns. I really do. I really like to buy British sovereigns. I like that coin. It's known, it's trustworthy. If you go to an Asian guy, or if you go to a Hindu fella and want to conduct a little business and you show them a gold sovereign, they immediately know the value of that coin. It's recognized by so many people in the world. Krugerrands are another one. I like Krugerrands. And, I like Maple Leafs. I like Eagles, but You know, that British sovereign, for its size, you know, it's about a quarter of an ounce or thereabouts. You know, so it's right now it's value at, you know, at $1,300. Its value is a little less than $400, maybe $350, something like that. So, you know, it's a very well known coin that is recognized by a lot of people around the world. And I have a funny feeling that even the white guys and the black guys here in the United States, before too long, they're going to know what a British sovereign's worth, because their dollars keep worth less and less and less, it seems, every day. The only thing buying gold is going to do is preserve what little wealth you have managed to stash away. You do not buy gold thinking you're going to make money on it. That's bullshit. You ain't going to make no money on it. All you're going to do is preserve what little money you've managed to stash away. I like it better than a savings account, I can tell you that. Yeah, I got one guy in the, try to buy a British sovereign right now. At the prices they're selling for, you will be lucky if you find one. Another one I like is the French and the Swiss roosters. Now, you got to buy 5 of those to get an ounce. 5, each one of them's about, you know, roughly a 20th of an ounce or a fifth of an ounce. I think they're 0.16, 0.168 or something like that of an ounce. But the 20 franc French coin and the 20 franc Swiss coin, they're very well known. They're very easy to exchange. People know that coin. If you're a bullion nerd, fine, buy bullion. I kind of like the coinage because it's easily recognized, and people will look at it and say, "Oh yeah, I know what that is. That's a French rooster. I know what that is. Yeah, that's worth, you know, a little less than $300, about $275, $280 right now." So, you know, people look at it, they know what it is. You know, a Brit sovereign, same thing. Somebody looks at it, they immediately know what it is. It's almost like, you know, putting a silver dollar in their hand. They know what a silver dollar is. No matter where they are in the world, they know what a U.S. silver dollar is. You know, yep, that's real. Okay? You know, Brit sovereign's that way. It's universally recognized. Bullion, you almost have to shave off a little bit and test it, you know, make sure it's real. You know, make sure it's not just a wrapper around some tungsten. Anyway, that is my word of wisdom on precious metals. Am I a precious metal expert or a precious metal nerd? Hell no, but I know a good deal when I see one. And you know, when the problem is people won't buy until they see the price starting to go back up again. Yeah, it's just human nature. You know, one of the reasons why the rich get rich and saps like us get poor is because the rich buy on the downturn and they sell on the upturn. Dummy us, you know, we see something going down, we say, "Oh, I don't want to buy that, it's going down. Oh my gosh, I'm not going to buy that, it's going down." As soon as it starts going up, oh, look, it's gone up $100. I'm going to buy now. Just as you buy, it's back on a downturn. No. You buy on the downs, folks. You buy on the downs. And now's a good time to buy. All right. I've had just about enough of this. I've gone 40 minutes overtime already. Were there any other really killer issues? Any killer items in the news that I really screwed up and did not cover? I mean, if I don't get some feedback on some item that I really neglected, I'm going to have to bag it for tonight, because I still got to bundle this thing up, post it to YouTube. I've still got a lot of work to do tonight before I can go to bed. The snipers were pointing rifles at everyone. Oh, at Bundy Ranch? Yeah. Well, you know, there were snipers on both sides, okay? And yeah, I'm sorry. I don't care what kind of uniform you're wearing, okay? I don't care what kind of uniform. I don't care if you're wearing a U.S. Army uniform, if you're wearing a Russian uniform, if you're wearing a BATF. I don't care. If you're pointing a gun at me and I have the opportunity to do so, I will have my gun pointed on you. I mean, it just makes sense, okay? Am I just supposed to climb under my bed and go, "Oh, please don't shoot me. Oh, please don't shoot me"? Bullshit. If I think there's a chance you're going to be taking a shot at me, I am going to be in a position to defend myself. And those folks at the Bundy Ranch, yeah, they weren't out there looking for trouble. But if you bring trouble to me, I'm going to be ready to handle it. Now, the best solution is for cooler heads to prevail and nobody be pointing any guns at anybody. But, you know, if Mr. Fed, if you decide that you are going to force your will upon me at the point of a gun, that's what the Second Amendment was all about, okay? That is the reason why average American citizens were protected under the Constitution with a Second Amendment, was just in case you feds get a wild hair up your ass and decide to come pointing a gun at average U.S. Joe for no damn good reason. You should expect to have a gun pointed right back at you. That was the plan. Perhaps this is that point in history where the Founding Fathers' wisdom shall be seen firsthand. Handle it with donuts. Well, I try to handle it with donuts as long as I possibly can. You know, I really don't want to shoot anybody, but I don't want anybody shooting me either. If I think there's somebody out there planning on shooting me, I have a right, a human right, a God-given right, a right granted me by the universe as a living creature to protect my life at all costs, including making you die instead of me, if that's the way it has to be. Don't want it. Would prefer you just didn't bring me that trouble, because I really don't ever want to have to face that one. Well, I think that's about it, guys. I'm going to have to bail. I've got a recording I've got to edit and a lot of posting to YouTube, and I've already gone, like I say, 40 minutes beyond my appointed time frame. So, you betcha, I'll be back to do some more barking at the moon next week. Until then, you all take care of yourselves, and please get in the habit of laughing at the sons of bitches. It drives them crazy. Good night.
Love of the turnarounds. None of us are leaving here alive. Whoa, what will you say? What will you say? And what will you do? Whoa, what will you do? What will you do? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn around? Oh, I'm calling out to you. Won't you turn, won't you turn